Okay, so this morning I thought that I would get up and go over a couple of things. I watched a video that I'll play and then I'm going to respond to because it is ridiculous or nonsensical, as one might say. So we'll start with this one.
What prosecutors were arguing is not only does your client pose a flight risk, because obviously he's incredibly wealthy, has access to planes and a lot of staff, even though you said he turned over his passport to you months ago. They were also worried about him being able to interfere with witnesses and calling them. And so I guess the question is, how do you assure the court that that won't happen if prosecutors are saying, this is someone who's attempted to bribe security staff and has already threatened and interfered with witnesses?
So I think the most important thing, even more important than the passport, is that Mr. Combs came to New York on September 5th. As soon as we realized that this indictment was going to be coming down in a matter of weeks, maybe months, but sometime soon, Mr. Combs got on a plane, left his home in Florida, flew to New York. I called the prosecutors myself. I said, Mr. Combs is in New York. Do you want to know where he is? If you want to know where he is, I'll tell you where he is, but he wants to surrender. He's here to surrender. They didn't want him to surrender.
I can tell you the reason that he got on a plane himself to go to New York wasn't because he was like wanting to be in New York so he could say, hey, go ahead, arrest me, because MDC sounds like a great place to be. Instead, it was more the fact that he wanted to fly in comfort and not be transported there.
Because if he surrenders, they don't get to tell the judge that he's a flight risk and he's a danger. Because who, as a danger and a flight risk, would fly to New York and surrender? So they didn't want him to surrender.
So since September 5th, you had known, you expected it was likely he was going to formally face charges.
So I really knew he was formally going to face charges on March 25th, the day of the searches, when Homeland Security searched his Los Angeles home, his Miami home, and his airplane. I knew that day by looking at the search warrants. I mean, I've been doing this for a while. This is not my first or 100th rodeo, that this was going to come as a matter of time. What I realized in early September is that it was coming soon. And so it was time for Mr. Combs to come to New York, which he
literally said, more important than the passport. Mr. Combs came to New York. Even so, that does not mean that he's not a flight risk. He still has more money than I could even ever dream of having. He has the ability to get on a plane at any moment that he wants to and leave. So it doesn't matter if he's in New York or Timbuktu. He's going to be able to flee if he wanted to flee. He's got the money.
He did. And let me just point out one very important thing. The prosecutors are seizing on something that happened 8 years ago. You know, this video that we've all seen. And it's a bad video for Mr. Combs, and he said so himself when he gave his apology. This is 8 years ago, and the prosecutors are talking about him bribing a hotel security worker. There was no criminal investigation. This was just a matter.
His apology was 8 years ago, yet it doesn't seem like he obviously meant anything that he said in that apology, because 8 years later, they have even more on him. So he didn't learn a lesson. He didn't wake up one day and magically become a decent human.
Of personal embarrassment, because he and the person in the video were in the midst of a 10-year relationship that was difficult at times, that was toxic at times, but it was mutually so. And this whole notion that Mr. Combs is forcing drugs on someone is just nonsensical, and it's going to prove to not be true.
Well, on that video, he initially denied the allegations when his then girlfriend, who is in that video, filed a lawsuit last fall. And we have that video. I should note CNN was the first outlet to exclusively report on it. He denied that happened when she filed it in a complaint. And then when the video came out is when he apologized for it.
So I wasn't his lawyer back then. So I don't, and I don't think he denied. I mean, I think the lawyers were the ones mostly making the denials. I think they were denying sex crimes. I mean, because at the end of the day, the gravamen of that civil complaint wasn't a misdemeanor assault, which is what you see on that video.
Okay, no. On that video, you can say that that's a misdemeanor assault all you want to, sir. But I could think of a few other crimes that he could have been charged with on that one. He's dragging her back into a room Obviously, she doesn't want to go because if she wanted to go, he wouldn't have to drag her. That could be kidnapping. That could be imprisonment. That could be a few different things that are a little more serious than what you're trying to say that it is. On top of that, we're literally watching him throw her to the ground and kick her a few times. Come on. You are as ridiculous as he is.
Not minimizing it, but it's a misdemeanor assault. What the gravamen of the complaint was sex crimes, and he denied that, and he still does.
Well, and you're saying that this is all just about that one relationship, but when you read through the indictment, they say that there's not just one victim. They say there's multiple victims here today. And what I heard described was they said they have 50 witnesses or victims.
Yeah, I think it's 49 witnesses and one victim. I think if you broke it down, and I say that because count 2, which is the sex trafficking count, has victim number 1, and there is no victim number 2 anywhere in the indictment.
So you're saying that there are not other women, because what they were essentially arguing here is that he coerced and forced women into sex acts by using physical force, financial pressure, emotional abuse, and narcotics for what they described as these freak-off sessions. They saying that he self-described them as that.
Yeah, there's one victim in the indictment. That the charging
but
document.
One victim does count, right?
No, of course, but I'm just not. It's not 50. I mean, what they did, and it's a little too cute, is it's 50 witnesses or victims. Well.
I don't think that anything about this is too cute, sir. Mark, these are women who were physically abused and tormented.
It's one victim. That's all that's in the indictment.
Our reporter who was in the courtroom today said that he appeared to have a stunned expression on his face. Was he surprised that he was arrested last night?
No, he definitely was not. I mean, I told him myself in early September, you are going to be arrested soon, and you're going to be charged with racketeering, and you're going to be charged with sex trafficking. So come to New York. It wasn't a long conversation. He agreed. So we knew this was coming. And in fact, we offered that he would turn himself in.
So if there are these witnesses and victims, and as you're saying that you believe it's one victim and 49 witnesses who saw this behavior, that's pretty powerful, though, to have that many people who have, if they go to court and argue that they witnessed this behavior by your client.
Well,
what's your defense against that?
So my defense is very well established. I interviewed myself the different men who were being brought sort of into Mr. Combs and this person's intimate situation. I've flown around the country. I've interviewed a large number of them. There's not the slightest inkling, according to the interviews that I've done, of anything that's coercive, non-consensual. Nobody was too drunk. Nobody was too high. These were adults in a relation. This is a 10-year relationship. We can't forget that. This is a 10-year relationship, and it was adults and consensual, and everybody who was there wanted to be there. So I feel very confident in our position.
You said you interviewed the men, but what about the women?
I haven't interviewed the woman's not available to me. She's presumably a grand jury witness, and we cannot try to interview a grand jury witness.
And you don't think that there are any other women who are going to say that they were coerced into this, given drugs, and essentially as prosecutors were saying that that's what kept them compliant?
So there are a lot
sessions.
of women in these civil cases. There's been a mountain of civil cases ever since the civil case that was filed in November. I don't see them as victims in the indictment. That's my point.
And so when you talk about that video of Cassie Ventura, that was his then girlfriend, in the video, I mean, just when you saw that, you said it's a bad video. It's pretty difficult to watch.
It is, no question. So let me tell you what happened.
Will that be used as evidence in court, do you think?
100%, 100%. So what I said in court today, and I'll say it again here, is the two of them were in a hotel. It was just the two of them in a hotel room. She found out that he was seeing someone else. She was going through his phone. She hit him in the head with his own phone. And then she walks into the hallway with 2 bags. One of the bags has all of his clothing taken from him, which is why he runs out in a towel. So this isn't her fleeing from one of these freak-offs. Why would she take his clothing? That's not what it is. And
I can explain why she might have taken the clothing. And I'm not going to say that it was one of his perverted freak-offs, but is there any chance that she took his clothing because she didn't assume that he was going to run out after her buck naked? I mean, I would have taken the clothes just to get a head start to get out of a room. If he's naked, that's my best chance of getting out of there. She didn't expect he would come after her. So I could think of a reason why she took his clothes.
And when the evidence comes out, this is going to be completely different than the government's portrayed it.
But on this video, and I just want to show that again now, how do you defend against allegations that he hit, kicked, and dragged women when he's on video hitting, kicking, and dragging a woman?
Sure, he's not charged with hitting, kicking, and dragging a woman. He's charged with sex trafficking, and he didn't traffic anybody.
But he's charged with a conspiracy here where he was using physical abuse, emotional abuse, financial pressure, as prosecutors allege, to keep these women in his fold. Maybe just Cassie Ventura, but keeping these women in the fold.
Cassie Ventura lived by herself. She had her own house. She had a family. She had a career. And he was seeing another woman at the time. He wasn't around a lot. She could have done whatever she wanted to do. All of these allegations of, I was forced, I was coerced,
She couldn't leave.
I had to stay, are nonsense. And it's going to be proven to be so.
That video, in the indictment, it alleges that your client paid hotel staff $50,000 to make it disappear from the hotel surveillance system. Did he pay off the hotel staff?
Not that I know of. I know that's an allegation. I don't know that is true. What I was concerned about when I heard about this allegation is whether there was an allegation that there was some sort of law enforcement investigation pending, because then that would be a crime. But there was none. And so this is not a crime.
You talked about...
That was literally a crime. We just watched you. You cannot assault somebody. You cannot force them into a room with you. You cannot do those things. That is a crime.
You said you're portraying this as adults who were at these events that wanted to be, I shouldn't even call them events. That's not certainly how anyone else would label it, but that they wanted to be there. But they also allege that they were recorded and essentially used as blackmail. Is that not true?
That's not true. That's not true.
How can you prove that when they have electronic evidence that, as they argue, over 90 cell phones, laptops, iCloud storage accounts, 30 electronic and storage devices, hard drives, thumb drives?
Yeah.
You're not worried about that?
No, because if they had it, they would have put it in the indictment. And it's not in the indictment.
Unfortunately for you, as an attorney, you should know that they do not have to put everything in the indictment. What they need in the indictment is what's going to get that person into custody. Once they do, they can add charges whenever they want to. There will be more charges.
When it comes to your client's credibility, I think people will look at what he said last fall. And it's not just his attorneys. I mean, he pays those attorneys. They're speaking on his behalf. They're the ones calling her claims baseless and ridiculous. And when you read the indictment today, they line up with what she alleged in that lawsuit last fall.
If the claim is that he had unwanted sex with her, that claim is baseless. And it will be proven to be baseless when we have a trial.
But the claim is obviously the conspiracy, the racketeering. It's much larger than just that, obviously, as you know.
It is, but the government wants it to be. But count 2, which is the sex trafficking count, relates to one person and one person alone. All of this talk of dozens of victims and 50 witnesses, if they had that, if they really had it, it would be in the indictment.
Let's go ahead and listen.
That's just ridiculous. I think that, as I said, more charges, more people. I'm going to actually put out another video because I do know that more people have already come out. And as I've said before, you know, people feel stronger to get, I don't want to use it in that term, but when there's more than just you sticking up or standing up and saying that this has happened to you, especially as a female, and you know how it's going to be looked at. Oh, you're just going after money, or you just want this, or the fame, or the attention, or however men want to label it. And some of his female fans too, I'm sure. We saw it with R. Kelly also. More people are coming out, and I've seen the more people coming out, because when there's more than one, all of a sudden you become stronger. You feel like, okay, I'm not alone in this. So I think that it's a little bit ridiculous that he's going to sit there and try to say all of that. But, you know, we'll see what he says. about all the other people. But as for the indictments, there will be more charges added. I think that there's going to be a lot more added. Sorry about that. The next video I have is about where he's staying at MDC. And I'm going to play the video. I'm not going to play the sound on that one. I'm just going to go over some of the new living conditions he's living under or in. It's rather disgusting, but you know, I can't think of a better person to be there. Oh man, we found out that Diddy is now under unaliving himself watch. So we're going to watch his living conditions that might explain why he's now under that watch. And I'm going to go over a few details about this jail. Okay. In the over the summer, there were 2 fatal stabbings. This facility is known for extreme violence, terrible medical care, and disgusting living conditions. There are judges who will not send nonviolent inmates to MDC. Judge Gary Brown described it as where chaos reigns along with uncontrollable violence. MDC has had a severe shortage of staff, yet it houses the most violent offenders. When looking at that video, that man, I believe he was stabbed 42 times. This facility housed Epstein's right-hand girl, Maxwell. I can't ever say her name correctly, so I'm not going to even attempt it. Let me go back. I'm just going to go to right there for a minute. Anyways, so I don't know. I got this from NBC News, and I'm just thinking to myself about how there's been maggots found in the food, cockroaches in the facility. I can honestly say I don't think anybody that commits a crime expects to be sent to an island of just luxury. So I don't know, but that is his new home. He is on Unalive watch, and I don't even know what's going to happen next, but we will keep following it.